this is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here to start my mid-month book bash vlog. So it's Friday, March 10th. And I realize that I've kind of gotten away from talking about what exactly mid-month book bash is. Mid-month book bash is a chance for us to focus on reading for the weekend. And it was an idea that was born out of those 24 and 48 hour readathons. This is an idea that was concocted by Doris over at Aldi Books. And so we take the Friday and then Saturday, Sunday, and then the Monday, because we like to cheat, and see how much reading we can get done. And it's always on the weekend of the 10th or the weekend immediately following the 10th of the month. And so it's mid-month book bash. It's a chance to get your reading focused, your attention focused on your reading. And it's usually really helpful for me in sort of getting myself organized and together with what I'm doing. So Heidi, what will you be reading this weekend? I am going to be reading quite a few things. So I am working on this mystery novel. This is Missing Joseph by Elizabeth George. This is a Inspector Lynley detective mystery series based in England. I can't remember if this is number 5 or 6 in the series. I can't remember where we are. I'm buddy reading this with Britta, and this is our pick. This is a pick for March Mystery Madness, and we really are enjoying these mystery series. This particular mystery series, I am about 150 pages into this one. Just had a first check-in today with Britta about this one. This the mystery at the center of this book is a vicar has been poisoned, and the local police have declared that it was an accident, but was it really an accident? So we've got Inspector Lynley and his band of friends are on the hunt to find out if it really was an accident. And then for the Irish Readathon, I am reading Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. This was just named to the long list of the Women's Prize this past week, but I had picked it up prior to that because Louise Kennedy is an Irish author, and I've read only the first 2 chapters of this so far. Work week has been extremely busy. I haven't had time to get back to this, so I want to work on this weekend. My mammoth for March of the Mammoths is Colonel Roosevelt by Edmund Morris. This is my Teddy Roosevelt biography that I've been working on since January. This is the 3rd volume in a 3-volume biography series on Theodore Roosevelt. I have marked with these flags so that I can read 15 pages per day and finish this book by the end of the month. So how's that going? You say. I am 1 day behind, so I need to read yesterday's pages and today's pages in order to catch back up. And at some point I will show you the spread that I've prepared in my bullet journal so that I can keep track of that reading. And then last but not least, I will be starting the last book that I have to read for my group for the BookTube Prize, and this is My 4th Time We Drowned: Seeking Refuge on the World's Deadliest Migration Route by Sally Hayden. And it's a little bit of a chunker, and I don't know anything about this book, so I'm heading into this one completely blind. Like I said, it is number 6 in my group. I'm reading nonfiction for the BookTube Prize this go around, and this book is due back at the library by March 20th, and today's the 10th, so I have 10 days, which is plenty of time, but I want to get started on this weekend and read a good chunk of it. So these 4 books are my main focus. I am also reading Buffalo is the New Buffalo by Chelsea Vowell. That's a buddy read with Sean, the book maniac. We've read just the first story in that book, and so I need to read the next story for our check-in on Monday, so I will be reading that one as well. And the first story, this is like a collection of speculative fiction stories based on indigenous mythology, or indigenous legends, and indigenous ways of seeing the world. And it's a really interesting format. The first story, I enjoyed the story because I do like speculative elements, obviously, but it was peppered with footnotes, and the footnotes, when you check the footnotes out, they would inform you of the historical true things that particular part of the story was based on. So it was a lot of history about the Métis in what we now know as Canada, and their history, particularly in the time period when the English and the French governments were sort of colonizing the middle part of what we now know as Canada. So yeah, it's an interesting format for a short story, I think. It's this like weird hybrid combination of a story with these nonfiction elements baked into it. So I'm not sure what to think about that yet. We'll be reading story number 2 in that collection this weekend. So fingers crossed that I can get quite a big chunk of reading done this weekend, because my work weeks are not allowing me much time for reading at all lately. So we'll see. So like I said at the beginning of the vlog, I've been reading this biography of it's called Colonel Roosevelt by Edmund Morris, and it's the 3rd volume in a 3-volume biography trilogy about Theodore Roosevelt. And this particular volume covers the years after his presidential terms are over. And I've just finished the section where he made a run for a 3rd term, but split from the Republican Party and formed his own new party, a progressive party they called the Bull Moose Party. And so that was the section that I just finished. And I have been keeping up with my goal of reading 15 pages a day to try to finish this in the month of March for March of the Mammoths. And this is the spread that I've been using to keep track of my pages every day. So I started on March the 7th. And you can see today is the 12th. So I've finished through day 11. I've got to read my 15 pages for today, but I like this little simple page to sort of track it and keep me on track for finishing that book up in the month of March. The other book I focused on yesterday, March 11th. Today is the 12th. So yesterday was Saturday, March 11th. And I read over 100 pages of Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. This is a book I picked up from the library, and it fits for the Irish Readathon. And this, I believe, is a debut novel. It's longlisted for the Women's Prize this year in 2023. And I am really, enjoy is a hard word to use for this book because it's quite dark. It tells the story of a young woman. She's, I think, 24 at the beginning of the story. She's a teacher. She teaches primary school. And she also works part-time at the bar that her brother owns. And she lives with her mom. Her dad has passed away. And she gets involved with a much older man. She is Catholic. He is Protestant. And he's quite a bit wealthier than she is. She's quite working class. And so, yeah, it's an illicit affair because he is married. And there's a lot in here about the Troubles. This takes place in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. And, of course, all of the violence happening. And it's, this young woman, I can't remember her name, it tells us, Kushla. Kushla, is dealing with the violence that her students are having to deal with. She's dealing with the violence that she herself observes, and this affair with this man who is much older and also from a different religion. So yeah, it kind of reminds me, as I said before, it kind of reminds me of other books that I've read recently about the Troubles, but they were written with a lot of humor and they were funny, and this book is not funny. This book is not funny. This book is quite sad and dark, but still, I think very compelling in its storytelling. Hello friends, it is Sunday night and I have finished the next section that I needed to read in this mystery novel, Missing Joseph by Elizabeth George. This is, I think, the 6th installment in the Inspector Detective Thomas Linley mystery series. This is a mystery set in England. The series is set in England. Thomas Linley is a detective for Scotland Yard, and he is also a member of the aristocracy, although he would prefer for everybody to forget that. His partner is Barbara Havers, and in each installment we get to see their development as colleagues, and there are a couple other characters that reappear in every installment that are Linley's friends. And basically help him solve these mysteries. So in this particular story, the group ends up in, I think it's Lancashire, and there's a vicar who has died, and we don't know if it's been an accidental poisoning or a on purpose poisoning. And this is a very layered mystery. So I'm like this far into it, I think a little over 300 pages into this over 500-page mystery, and there's a lot of layers. It starts off quite slowly. Elizabeth George likes to build the narrative quite slowly. There's a lot of character development, and that's what I really enjoy about this series, is how much time is spent sort of telling each character's story, and each bit that we get to learn about the reoccurring characters as the series progresses. The other thing that I'm liking about this particular installment is the themes of, there seems to be quite a lot around lust and what people do and don't do when they are in the throes of lust, and a lot about fertility. So yeah, that's been pretty interesting. So that's pretty much all probably I can say about this one. I'm enjoying this quite a bit, so I will be able to check in with Britta for our next check-in on that. And then I've also gotten about 75 pages into my last Book 2 prize book. This is My Fourth Time We Drowned, Seeking Refuge on the World's Deadliest Migration Route by Sally Hayden. And this is nonfiction, obviously, because that's what I'm reading for the Book 2 prize. And like I said, I'm about 75 pages into this, and that's all I can tell you about it. So one more day left in Mid-Month Book Bash for this go-round. I do have to work tomorrow, and it's a longer work day for me, so I don't know that I'll get much reading done, but I do want to start a new audiobook. And so I haven't decided yet which audiobook I'm going to start, but I will check in with you again tomorrow once I have decided, and try to tell you about that at least. I don't know if I'll get anything else read. I'd like to get a little ways further in Trespasses by Louise Kennedy, but we'll see. We'll see how that all goes. Good morning. It is Tuesday, March the 14th, and Mid-Month Book Bash is over. And I had such a busy day yesterday with work, and I didn't get home until late, so I didn't have time to close out the vlog. So I'm closing it out now. And I did start and finish another audiobook yesterday. So I wanted to briefly talk about that before I close the vlog out. And the book I read was Oroonoko by Aphra Behn. And it was read by Claire Willie. And this is a book that I picked up because it was on a list that Britta Bowler had put together of 12 classics by women authors that she wanted to read in 2023. And this is the book that she's chosen to read for the month of March. And it was available to me on Scribd, so I figured, why not? It was a short audiobook. It's only like 3 hours long on audiobook, and I listened to it on 1.5 speed, so it didn't take any time at all. And this is a story that was first published in, I think, 1688. So it's very early. I think maybe is even the first novel written in English by a woman or something like that. And it's a slave narrative. I believe Aphra Behn is a white woman, or was a white woman, but she's writing about this African prince Oroonoko. It's very much like a romantic adventure story that sort of reminded me of in the vein of other, classic adventure stories from that time period, like early on. And we follow Oroonoko, who, he's born and he's handsome and he's this amazing warrior and everybody loves him. And, we find out how the people in his tribe treat him and all that. He falls in love. He's betrayed by his grandfather, and then he is betrayed into slavery, and he gets taken to Suriname. And so it's the story of this prince who then becomes a slave, and what happens to him in slavery, because he obviously refuses to basically accept his fate as a slave. Like I said, there's a romance there, so I don't want to go into details because I don't want to spoil this very short novella. It was very enjoyable to listen to on audiobook. It was, like I said, it was very quick. If you're looking for a classic by a female author that you can listen to in an afternoon, if you like listening to classics on audiobook, I certainly can recommend Oroonoko. It was ridiculous in places. I think at one point Oroonoko kills a tiger with a knife or something. And this tiger has historically been terrorizing a village or whatever, and they cut the tiger open, and she's been shot 10 times in the heart or something and survived until Oroonoko kills her with a knife. It's very ridiculous. It's over the top. The romance part of it is really over the top, but it is enjoyable, and it certainly is I think an example of that sort of romantic adventure story that was very popular at the time. So interesting to read that and think about. It's also very negative in its views towards slavery, and so that it was sort of suppressed, I guess, at the time when it was published, and it's been kind of obscure because of that, because the author was being very critical of slavery and Europeans, and so of course that was not anything anybody wanted to read about back then, or the powers that be that didn't want people to read about that. So interesting read. Glad that I picked it up. Had never heard of it before Britta put it on her list. So I'm glad that I had an opportunity to hear about it and to read it this month. So that is it for Mid-Month Book Bash. I do feel like even though my reading was very episodic throughout the weekend, it was very successful for me. And so as always, I appreciate the opportunity that Mid-Month Book Bash gives me to sort of focus in on my reading. I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read. I will talk to you later.